Hi guys, this video is to sort of show you something I've been trying out, a new toy, so to speak. I bought a hardware capture card called the Live Gamer HD. And my thinking behind this was that it would, because it was a hardware card, it would encode the files on the fly, make them very, very small and not require any CPU. Therefore, my game would run smoother and so on. Right now, what I used to use, or what I still use for recording, is W Professional for the desktop. As you can see here, it's this records the desktop for me. That's what I'm usually using. Now, I'm not using it right now. And the problem is, this is a terrible thing to record games with. In fact, I don't even think it will. Actually, I think it fails. But even if it did, I remember I used an old version that did record games, and it recorded them. It was such a performance problem. When I'm recording games, I use Dxtory. Now, Dxtory won't record my desktop. So obviously, one of the problems is if I'm doing a tutorial on how to run something, and I show you how to do something, and then I start the game up, what I have to do is stop recording with W, start Dxtory, then restart the game, and then edit it all together. So this would allow me to basically show it as I do it, which is an advantage. Now, Dxtory is an excellent program, but there is a couple of problems with it. The first problem is performance. Now, it's not that big a problem. It probably drops 10-20%. It can depend, but say 20%, depending on how much compression I'm using on performance, which is not the end of the world, but there you go. However, to keep it that fairly good performance, I use the Dxtory video codec, and I even on low quality with compression, it's huge files. So an hour of gameplay will take an entire 250 gigabyte drive. So as you can imagine, that's fairly problematic. I rarely play more than an hour, but sometimes I play for 3/4 of an hour, record something, and then want to start recording something immediately, and I have to transfer the file from this computer to my video computer. And that can take, well, that can take an hour in itself. Even with a 1 gigabyte network, that's a huge amount of data to transfer. So you can actually choose different codecs and make them, a lot smaller files, but that then demands CPU, and your performance drops massively. So where I might get 100 frames a second, it'll drop down to 55, 60 frames a second. So it's more like a 40% drop, which is very noticeable. So I normally do the Dxtory codec. So anyway, my thought was I would use this Live Gamer card, and I could record everything, no performance loss, and very small files. However, it's not quite as good as I thought. I will show you. If I start up Skyrim, see, the problem is because it's encoding on the fly, even though it encodes fairly high bitrate, it's not doing a hugely good job of it. It does it really, obviously, very, very quickly, and the quality is not even compatible to Dxtory. It's not even close. So I will actually show you. I'm going to start, here I am, I'm going to start recording with Dxtory as well. Now, Dxtory is currently capping my frame rate at 60 frames a second. So I don't know what loss I've got when using Dxtory, but I think it's noticeable. You can probably, because I'm recording using the hardware card, you can probably in the upper right hand side see Dxtory working. That's what I see when I play. Now, the Dxtory recording doesn't show that, but that's what I see when I play. So when people start to say, how do you know what frame rate you've got? That's how. I can see it's recording, I can see it showing me 60 frames a second, and it's recording at 30 frames a second. So, for me, this is crystal clear. I'm looking at the game, not the recording, you're looking at this via the recording. Now I'm planning on split screening this so you can actually see the difference between the card and the and Dxtory, which is a program. And I know from experience now that you're seeing the Dxtory one a lot sharper, probably not that much sharper now because I'm stationary. However, it becomes very noticeable as I move. So if I move and keep turning slowly, you will probably see very clearly that the hardware recorded one is just not as high quality as the program on Dxtory. When I stop, the hardware one actually does catch up a little bit. It's fairly good when stationary, but it just isn't as good. There is also a little bit of tearing. Not always noticeable, but the VSync doesn't seem to work. So if you move around rapidly, you will sometimes get tearing. So, and don't get me wrong, it's not terrible. The Live Gamer HD card, it records well, and it is fairly good quality. It's just not quite as high quality as as I'm used to. In fact, let's get some sunlight on my back so you can see details. It's not quite as high quality as the Dxtory, and honestly, I like the high quality, so I think I'm going to keep recording with Dxtory, which is a little bit of a shame because I've spent a bit of money on this card. Still. This card looks like it's something that's actually very good for live streaming. So if you do a lot of live streaming, this is probably an excellent thing because quality is less of an issue there. What you really need is very good compression that doesn't give you performance hits. So I think that's what this card is aimed at, and for that it's probably absolutely superb. It's just I don't do any of that. So there you go. Still, I gave it a try. It's nice to try these things, but I do think I will be sticking with Dxtory for now. Oh, before I go, I'll actually show you what I mean about the frame rate. As you can see now, Dxtory is reporting about 120 frames a second. I found a decent spot where I've got no CPU lag, and even the water doesn't slow me down that much. Oh, a little bit of a glitch there. Sound glitch. So yes, as you can see, fairly good frame rate here. And when I start recording with Dxtory, drops to about 90. So in actual fact, I get about a 30 frames per second drop. However, I can tell you if I recorded this... Was that a wolf behind me going vertical? Ignore it. If I was recording this using one of the codecs that makes small files, I'd probably be getting about 60 frames a second max. And I can tell you when I go to Whiterun, where the CPU is under a lot more pressure, if I record with a codec that makes small files there, frame rate drops to sort of 30 frames a second, which, I mean, I know a lot of people saying, oh, that's playable. Not for me. It really is not for me. So, but there you can go. You can see, even with an easy codec, I'm still getting a loss, about 25% performance drop. Actually, no, that's probably what I said, wasn't it? About 20%. So 25% I got there. So if I start recording, straight back up to 120. So yeah. Now you understand why I was trying to get the Live Gamer card to work, because it would have been nice to have 0 frame rate drop. Because of course I'm running around now, recording happily, and massive frame rate. Now, and it might not seem hugely important, but as I said, if we go to Dragon Reach, I'll actually show you. You will see the frame rate is nowhere near as good. So up on these steps, frame rate, I mean, it's not that bad, is it? I'm not using any programs that improve performance, like there's a new program out there I'm going to try actually. But there you go, so 70 frames a second. Now we start recording. Oh, you know what? That's not that bad, is it? It really isn't. 60 frames a second up on this step with Dxtory. Albeit I'm not using a huge number of mods at the moment, I've uninstalled them all. I think we're sticking with Dxtory. 60 frames a second I can play. I can play 60 frames a second, and it's worth the extra high quality. It really is. As cool an idea as this Live Gamer HD was, I prefer the quality. Quality over whatever. Oh, one thing that Live Gamer does have that's very cool is a great big button that sits on your desk and flashes red when recording. So you feel like you're in a studio with a light saying, recording. Whereas for Dxtory, I always have to look. For example, now I know I'm not recording because it's green and there's no indicator. If I start recording, there you go. It tells me my frames a second plus how many frames a second I'm saving to file and that I'm recording. And as you can imagine, you do get used to that, but it can be distracting for someone like me who likes a completely empty screen. So the Live Gamer would have been cool because you don't see anything on screen. There's just a slight flashing red light off to the side of your vision that lets you know you're recording, which is very cool. Anyway, that's it. I just thought you guys might be curious as to some of the things I'm playing with.